In this chapter, we're looking at overviews of arguments, and we're going to focus on Toulmin. So the Toulmin argument starts with the claim. And Toulmin says that the claim is the statement being argued. An argument may have many claims, but it generally has one overall claim or thesis. So an example of an argument that makes more than one claim, if we look at Hamlin's Why We Can't Talk About Gun Control. So in the article, Hamlin's overall claim is that we can't talk about gun control because parties are too focused on hearing what they want to hear. And so they don't want to hear another side. Whether that side is credible or not, it doesn't matter because people don't want to hear it. In order for Hamlin to make that overall claim work, he needs to prove that Metcalf was credible. So Hamlin could prove his claim that we don't engage in real conversations about issues. So reading the article, it can come a little bit misleading because you assume that Hamlin is arguing that Metcalf's claim about gun control is credible. But in reality, he has to say Metcalf is credible, so he can say he himself is credible. So you'll notice you may have multiple claims in an article, but there's generally one overall claim or thesis. And that's what we're going to define as claim. You can have different kinds of claims. So Toulmin separates them into claims of fact, value, and policy. Obviously, claims of fact are supported by data. So they're the things that we can generally prove to be true or not true by assertion of different facts. A claim of value is an attempt to prove that one thing is more desirable than another. So a lot of times these claims will sort of rest on standards of taste. What do we believe is better? What sort of music is better? Those are generally claims of value when we talk about art, music, that sort of thing. And then finally, claims of policy. Claims of policy change the way things are done in order to find solutions to problems. How can we make students learn better? So we may change a policy concerning education. To make things more organized can also be policy changes. So as you start looking through the different articles we read, you need to decide, are they claims of fact, are they claims of value, or are they claims of policy? Support is the second element that Toulmin says an argument needs. So support consists of evidence, data, and emotional appeals. In Levitt's The Culture of Shut Up, the data is largely contextual rather than factual. So it generally relies a lot on our emotions considering those topics and what we consider to be important. Hamlin's article, Why We Can't Talk About Gun Control, the evidence is both. It's very specific and it supports very specific points. And so there is a lot of factual data. There's a lot of appeals to authority where he tries to make Metcalf an authority, a 28-year veteran, knowing about guns and writing about guns and working in fields related to guns. And so there's lots of different kinds of evidence in that article, whereas I feel like Culture of Shut Up, it's more of a contextual article and makes more emotional appeals to humor, that sorts of thing. Finally, we get to warrants, and warrants are generally one of the more complicated aspects of Toulmin's argument, but they're really what holds the claim and the support together. They're sort of that glue. And warrants can be stated or they can be unstated. And so sometimes it's very tricky to figure out where it is, particularly if it's unstated. So Toulmin, in the book, it's defined as, a warrant is defined as an assumption, a belief, or principle that must be believed for the argument to be true. Toulmin, actually, in his own explanation of his idea of how arguments are created and analyzed, says he calls warrants inference licenses. So he writes, our task is no longer to strengthen the ground on which our argument is constructed. And what he means by that is once we present a certain data set, once we have our evidence, we can't just keep piling on more facts. At a certain point, you have to take that data and make the appropriate leap to the original claim. And is that appropriate Is that leap appropriate and legitimate? And your warrant is what tells the reader whether that leap is legitimate. How do you connect your data to your claim? And again, it's difficult because there's no one right answer to that. I mean, there are right answers, but they are ones that you have to think through. They're generally not found in the article necessarily. So think about the culture of shut up. What do we need to believe to be true to accept Lovett's argument? So think about this. Hit pause. Think about this a little bit right now. What do you need to believe in order to agree with Lovett? Because there's certain assumptions that you must have in order to accept his argument to be true. So here's one. The further dialogue about an issue will bring about a resolution. In order to accept his argument, we have to believe that talking about the issue more will lead to a resolution that we will then compromise. Another one that could possibly be true. Maybe we have to assume that the original speaker is coming from a place of honesty. So, in other words, all of the people that get told to shut up, we have to believe that they are motivated by a personal belief system and not some other external motivation like money or power. Because if they're saying what they're saying because of outside influences, having a dialogue with them about the issue itself is not going to change their belief system about it or what they say about it. So that it needs to come from a place of honesty, that they truly believe that this is the way the world is supposed to be. So as you go through, start reading chapter 2, thinking about those things. Chapter 1, I'm sorry. Make sure that you look very closely at the analysis that's provided, the hard truth of immigration, and try to apply Toulmin to that so that you can see how it works.